Hi, Susan Finley here at Train Smarter. There was an article that came out this week in the Washington Post of all places. The headline was, "Why This Orthopedic Surgeon Insists Women Should Sit Like a Man." I had a client bring this article into me because she was all worked up because she knows how I'm into mechanics and movement patterns and habitual postures I have such an interest in. And she really kind of thought I'd be interested in this article. I am interested in this article. I am so interested in it. I'm furious about all of this misleading information that is in this article. There is so much misinformation in the fitness world, and I guess you kind of know, we joke about how, oh, it must be real, it was on the internet, but this truly is a case of look at what's been written here, and if you've just got to know something about the subject, and most people won't. This orthopedic surgeon in Texas came out with this idea, and she even created an acronym for it. She calls it SLAM, S-L-A-M, sit like a man. Well, in the first place, men don't all sit the same way, and let me tell you, they have plenty of issues coming out of how they sit. But as she puts it, developmentally, women have a wider pelvis than men, and that means that their femur rotates in. And because she had hip pain, she had bursitis in her hip, and she noticed that when she changed the vehicle she was riding in, her hip pain went away. She immediately leapt to the idea that it was somehow or other related to how she was sitting. Nothing to do maybe with how deep the seat was or anything else about that seat, just about how her legs were, and then toss that on over into this whole idea that, oh, well, when she was driving her truck and her hips didn't hurt, she must have been sitting like a man. So what she's saying is that women's hips turn in because of their pelvis being wide. The reality is that lots of people's hips turn in. Men's hips turn in, women's hips turn in, and all of that is related to hip weakness and foot weakness and that inability to maintain pelvic neutral. Usually it all stems from hip flexor tightness. It's not so much about how wide somebody's pelvis is. Second of all, most men, we created this whole terminology called manspreading regarding how men typically sit. Men typically sit with their legs out wide, and then they get tight laterally. So their hips don't collapse in, but their hips are turned out. That causes a whole other kind of knee pain. I've actually taken men and held their knees to a neutral position and said, now stand up from that position, and they can't get up off the chair because all they know how to do is to go wide and come up. So men and women sit differently, and all the different ways they sit have all kinds of implications. She goes on to say that this genetic predisposition to being knock-kneed is related to being ladylike. One of the most ladylike kinds of things you're ever going to see is go to a gym and look at the hip adduction machines, where you sit and you bring your knees in. Typically what people do is they pull in and they turn their knees in. So yes, that makes people more knock-kneed. Generally, like probably 99% of the time, the people that are on those machines are women, not men, because women somehow or that they think that they can work the fat off of their legs, which isn't the case at all. So what she says, she even goes on to say, let your outer thigh relax in this article. There's no such thing as an outer thigh muscle because the muscles in your legs are either your quads or your hamstrings or your adductors and abductors up in your hip, but for the record, there is no outer thigh muscle. Then, on top of all of this, she goes on to say that because of our knock-kneed hips, we tend to stand on one leg and put the other one out. And that we need to stand more like men because the way she says it is that men stand equally on both feet. I'm so glad you tuned in, Ann Douglas. I am fired up on this subject. So she says, the way women often stand with their weight on one side and 1 foot forward can put undue stress on both the leg you're standing on and the leg you're not standing on because of the way your pelvis rotates. Oh my gosh. Could she see a picture of my dad when he was standing? He always stood on one leg and put the other one out. That pelvic rotation that makes one leg longer than the other one, again, originates with a tight hip flexor that rotates down and causes one leg to be longer, but it really has nothing to do with the fact that you're a man or a woman or how wide your pelvis is. I would say, in fact, the statistic is 80% of people out walking around have functionally one leg longer than the other. 80% of people walking around are not women. It happens in both sexes, not related to whether you're a male or a female. Then, finally, the third thing she says that is so wrong is, get this, if you see 100 people with painful bunions or hammer toes, 95 of them are women, and it's from, get this, jamming their toes down into tight, pointy shoes. No, it's not. We know for a fact that it's a huge myth that bunions are because of pointy shoes. Bunions happen in men, but I've seen teenagers, like almost children, with bunions. It has nothing to do with the pointy shoes. Again, it comes back to weak hips. If your hips turn in, the weight goes into your arch, that makes your foot turn out, and it throws more pressure on your big toe joint. So your body decides to protect itself and builds more bone on that big toe joint. So, all in all, all of her points here I totally disagree with, but I think that it is so sexist to say that women need to sit like men. If she could see the men that I have had get down on the floor and just try to sit cross-legged, they can't externally rotate at all. Now, she likes the fact that they pull in, they can't turn out. In fact, I happen to be related to somebody who can't sit cross-legged in the floor. The very first time somebody ever told me they couldn't sit in the floor with their kids, it was a man, and I was astounded that it was ever possible for somebody to not sit in the floor without leaning against a wall, which is what he said he did. So, if you see this article like Ann did, please consider all of these points that are just wrong. It's written by a woman who's an orthopedist, and she may know how to replace hips, but she really doesn't know how the forces work on that. People like us and like physical therapists who actually work with correcting mechanics understand all of that. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk about this. Secondly, I swear, I think I'm going to do just like a myth-busting Friday. So another source that you really have to watch out for, because I see so much misinformation there, is Cooking Light. I've already sent them 2 emails about the information that they're putting out there and suggesting that they kind of get people with better credentials to be their fitness experts, because they're out there saying, you'll see headlines that are sort of clickbaity, like learn how to burn more calories walking. And you really can't burn a significant number of more calories, and the kinds of ways that you could wouldn't be healthy. You don't want to add weight to your body. That's like being heavier, and we all know that's stressful on your joints. So it's all misleading misinformation, but the one that really got me today said, if you're sacrificing snacks to cut calories, stop. You need snacks to lose weight. Snacking is an opportunity to fuel your body between meals, which it is. Healthy snacks ensure that you won't be ravenous come mealtime and keep your fat-burning metabolism revved up. If you're on my email list, and if you're not and would like to be, please drop me a message and I'd be happy to add you. We talked recently about metabolism, and there is a myth that every time you eat, it increases your metabolism. Every time you eat, your body has to burn those calories, but when they have studied people over the course of a day, they find that given the same number of calories, there's really no difference in the ultimate body weight between people who eat the same number of calories in 3 separate meals and the people who split their calories up into 5 meals. Now, you don't want to get ravenous so that you overeat, but that still doesn't mean that you're stoking your metabolism by eating more frequently. To lose weight, you don't need snacks. In fact, it can also be to your detriment, because what happens a lot of times is people feel like they need to have their metabolism stoked, so they eat 5 times a day, and then they don't account for the number of calories they had in that snack and sort of subtract it from what they're eating the rest of the time. There's been some research that's come out that actually indicates that people lose weight better when they eat 3 meals a day, just sort of like your basic breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a lunch, mid-afternoon snack, dinner if you're in intermittent fasting or whatever. But there is just no magic to this whole snack and metabolism thing. And then finally, I'm telling you, beware of Cooking Light. there's a link on this page that says to lose weight, you need snacks. And the link is to your top fat-burning foods. Okay, so I clicked on that because it's clickbait and I couldn't resist. It's like a train wreck. What are they saying now? And so what they're saying in there is they have all these foods. It's like hot peppers increase your metabolism. Whole grains increase your metabolism. Your body's going to work a little harder to digest whole grains than it is to digest more processed foods. Your metabolism will go up a little bit more if you eat hot peppers. But seriously, how many hot peppers can you eat? And the fact is, all of that stuff doesn't really make a difference. What happens most of the time is that people are looking for a quick fix, a magical food, a magic diet, a magic way of eating. But there's time and time again, the research shows it comes down to getting your calories in order and not eating more calories than the calories that you're expending in your exercise and daily activities. And the thing that burns the most calories really is sustaining your body, sustaining muscle mass, keeping your body heated. Taller people tend to burn a lot more calories to keep them heated than smaller people do. And you're not going to find a magic food. You're not going to find, they've even done some studies in metabolic chambers. And the amount of difference that they can find between people who think they have, exactly, Anne, people still fall for this stuff. The amount of difference, they were even, in fact, I'm going to be writing about this soon, people who say that, who they think they would consider to have fast metabolism versus a slow metabolism. At the end of the day, hi Anne, the difference is so minimal. It is like probably the equivalent of eating about, I think it said 300 to 500 calories would be the difference, which is really like, the cookies that you had for dessert or whatever. So anytime you see something, and I've told my readers on my email mailing list that anytime I see something that is extraordinary, like recently, and I'll probably be coming on to talk about this, the whole subject of whether or not ice has fallen out of favor, as well as cryotherapy generally, and ice baths and all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of response to the email I sent out on that subject last week. It really is interesting, but there is great research there, and because I felt like I could trust that research, then I went ahead and disseminated that information. But when I see stuff like women need to sit like a man, no. I just found that offensive from day one. It really, really bugged me that it would say that women need to sit like a man, because that's why some women get bursitis. I mean, she did. I've known people with bursitis. I've known men with bursitis. But if it was all related to women and how women sit, because we were talking about this broad category, then lots and lots and lots and lots of women would have hip bursitis, because we all have relatively wider pelvis, right? That's why we're here, to work on keeping hips strong so that we don't have those issues. Anyway, this was fun. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about the realities versus the myths, because I know it's just so easy to see things out there and think it's the truth. It's really fiction. If you have any questions about anything that you're wondering if there's any truth to it, or if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, Lord knows I love to talk. So thank you for watching. Yeah, women get to sit. Exactly. That's why there's so much difference. Women never sit down. Men do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.